keep my wife's name out your mouth. Speak to her again.
Is that Louis?
I was looking like, bro, you crazy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sips and Scripts, the podcast where we make cocktails and talk about one of our favorite movies from the past and present. My name is Terrell Bernard, and I'm a film enthusiast.
Hi, I'm Kayla Rose, and I'm an entertainment blogger at InMyTheater.com.
And I am Kirsten Jackson, and I am a blogger and cocktail influencer at LowCountrySocialite.com. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Back one time for the one time.
We're back one time for the one time. Yes. Welcome back. And this week we have a special guest with us.
Woo-hoo.
Yay, we have Miss Shelly Carpenter. Hi, Shelly. How are you doing?
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Shelly is Miss Rise and Sustain on Instagram. She is a health and wellness influencer and a yoga student and future yogist. That's what Jocelyn Hernandez called it. So what do you call it?
Really? That's where you get your information from, Jocelyn Hernandez?
Listen, man, I love Jocelyn. She is irresponsible and I love it.
Yes.
She is quite belligerent and of one of my favorites. What do you call a yoga?
Yogi.
A yogi.
Yeah. So I'm an inspiring yogi. Yep.
Yes. Yes, she is an aspiring yogi, but she's a yogi to me. She got it going on. She's already classified in my book. Yeah, so health and wellness influencer, shop owner to Shop Liberty Co. She's also a blogger at ShellyCLately.com. And she is joining us today with her chosen film, and that is
Eve's Bayou.
So Shelly's chosen film, she's joining us today to talk about Eve's Bayou, the 1997 Southern Gothic drama classic, Black cinema. Terrell, you go to hell?
That was a very great.
Oh, really? No, that was an unnecessary shot.
Well, for those of you who are just catching on to our podcast, Terrell likes to argue us down about what is a hood classic and what is Black cinema.
You call everything a hood classic. That's what Black people do.
We're not getting into that with you.
Okay, all right. Y'all got it. Yeah, this is Black cinema.
I was saying that, yes, Black cinema at its best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
You said thank you like you wrote the script or something. You all right?
I did.
Thank you.
But I will say, okay, going into writing the script and all that stuff. So this is like a directorial debut from Casey Lemons, who wrote this story. And like, it's been a while. I've seen this movie a trillion times, and it's been a while since I've watched it. And going back and rewatching it, it's like, wow, this story was really a lot more complex than I, thought when I first saw it. But we'll get into all of that because I'm sure all of you guys have some things to add about it. But yeah, a little further about all right, so this film stars SamuelLJackson, who was also the producer for the film, or one of the producers, and starting this film with Lisa Nicole Carlson, Journey Smollett, Lynn Whitfield, Debbie Morgan, Megan Good, and Diane Carroll. Who, okay, before we get started, where is Lisa Nicole Carlson at? She's fine. Where is she at? She used to be in all the hood movies.
Yeah.
And she just disappeared.
Yeah, I think I saw an article about what happened to her. Wasn't she on Ally McBeal?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, it's an article about her and why she's no longer in Hollywood. I think she was blackballed or something. She did something. She said something. I don't know.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, I wouldn't even think about this movie, but when you said that, I was like, wait a minute, I thought I saw an article about that.
I always thought she was so pretty.
Oh,
She
yeah,
struggled
beautiful.
with bipolar disorder. And so she went on hiatus until 2012, and then she reprised her role as Renee Raddick in the final episode of Harry's Law.
What is Harry's Law? I had never seen that before.
No, I ain't never seen that neither.
And I don't know why y'all asking me.
Yeah.
Well, you the one came with the Wikipedia facts about Lisa.
From 65 TV show I ain't never heard of before.
Oh Lord. Well, we appreciate you using your Googleator and coming up with half information. Thank you.
Dang. That was more information than you had.
Right.
It was. But it wasn't as much as I needed.
From this photo from 2020, she still looks like the baddest bitch, okay?
Really?
Yeah.
I have to look at that. I always just thought she was so pretty because she, I mean, she was very curvy. She's always been very curvy. She always had that gorgeous hair and that big wide smile. She's just always so pretty.
Wow, yeah. That's what I always remember, her smile. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very pretty.
Okay. Well, before we get started and go into the film, what's everybody up to this week? Kayla, what you working on?
What am I working on this week? I need to put some blogs out. So I'll be working on blogging this week. A couple of movie reviews to do, a couple of TV shows to review. So that's what I'll be working on.
Terrell, what you got going on?
Let's see. Wife is starting a book club. I'm not in the book club, but to get my son to start reading more, I did purchase some books that I'm going to start reading. And we're going to do family reading time on a daily basis.
That's dope. That's dope. You hate to read.
I do hate to read. But I
Audible
will
is
read.
your best friend then.
What book are you starting off with?
Will Smith's autobiography that he wrote.
Okay.
Are you reading that with your children or?
Oh, no.
Bad?
I don't know.
Yeah, it
but
is. He could have kept that to himself. There was a lot in that book that we did not need to know about.
Oh, Jesus.
And the way he
Wow.
described some of the stuff that we didn't need to know about was ridiculous. Like, do y'all know what a ghetto hyena was? He was having sex like a ghetto hyena. And I was just like, what?
I don't know what a ghetto hyena is.
That sounds kind of juicy.
I know, look, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm intrigued. I need to-
His mom came in and heard my sounds of youthful lovemaking. And I was like, that is
Okay, now you took away.
Weird.
Now you
Oh,
took
I
away.
can get like
That is
this.
weird.
I know.
Okay, I was intrigued just like Shelly, but
I
now I'm
know.
like,
Yeah, but now, like, let me pull that back. I gotta take it back.
Well, yeah, it was. Woo.
Well, Shelly, what are you up to this week? What are you working on? Do you have any projects or anything going on?
I do. I'm doing a couple, I do some digital marketing for a few companies. So I'm working on their graphics and designs and getting all that scheduled out and working on a website, shop for a local CBD shop that's here. Trying to roll out their online component of their business. So hopefully that'll be up and ready by the end of this week. And that's pretty much it. And momming, do that all day, every day.
Right.
Coming and the mother. We love to see it.
We love it.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me put my stuff back. Like, what you doing? Nothing. I wasn't doing nothing.
No. You gave me some inspiration. I'm still on the fence now about the Will Smith book, but I'm gonna have to join you with that tale and read it anyway.
Yeah. To pair with our feature film, we're gonna make a cocktail called just a Bayou Cocktail. They're easy. So what you'll need is 1.5 ounces of coconut rum. I like to use Malibu, but you can use Rum Haven or just any coconut rum, but 1.5 ounces of it. 1/2 ounce of dark rum. I'm going to use this Barcardi Black and 1/2 cup of fruit punch, 1/4 cup of orange juice, and 1/2 ounce of Grenadine. So you fill your cocktail shaker with ice, pour in all of the rum, the fruit juice, the orange juice, and the grenadine, and give it a good shake and strain it over a glass of fresh ice. You can use a Collins glass, which is a highball glass, and you can garnish it with an orange slice or maraschino cherry, and there you go. So that is our classic cocktail to pair with this great movie. So if you guys are ready, let's get into it. So I'm just going to give a brief opener to the film. So we start off with 10-year-old Eve Batiste, who lives in this Creole American community in Louisiana. So the film opens up with these beautiful images of the bayou, the trees, all the water, and we lead up to this opening scene where there is a party going on, and that just kind of shows us how well respected and how prominent this family is. So we have Eve and her older sister Cicely and her younger brother Poe. We've got her dad Louis and her mom Roz and her aunt Moselle. So right here in the opening, in this party, we learn that Louis is trash.
Complete and utter trash.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the party? Let's talk about the party scene, since that's our beginning scene.
So the party was real cute, real classy, but like, you know, with a little bit of like they were dressed really pretty. They looked like they were having a good black time. But the little lady, what was her name? The one who we were just talking about, Lisa Nicole, Carson's character,
Miss Maddie Moreau.
Addie Moreau, yeah.
With them people daddy right on the darn dance floor. And I was like, y'all don't right. You ain't gonna be in my house with my husband dancing the way you dancing in front of my children. Yeah. That's my voice, my down voice.
Really?
Goodness gracious.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
But yeah, I thought it was so cute. They were just having so much fun. And, you know, it was just literally showing how, like you said, how well off these people were, how respected they were, and just them having a good time.
Yeah. I really enjoyed seeing that. It kind of brought me back to my childhood when, you know, our family would entertain, you know, at our house. Like the kids were still kind of running through the house, kind of sitting back and watching what the grown-ups were doing, not really participating with the grown-ups outside of their family. But I thought it was, a really cute scene, and like a scene that, just really brought me back to, like, you know, spending family time like that and entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. That was a sight to see. I enjoyed that scene. Yeah, I agree with everyone.
So I think what I really liked was, like, leading up to that scene, you know, the story that she was beginning to tell about, you know, really how their family became that prominent, you know, family. So it kind of, you didn't really think like, well, why are these, you know, Black people in Louisiana in this big mansion, and why are all these people at their big mansion? Because she kind of foreshadowed that with telling the story of Jean Baptiste, and which was the white slave owner, and their, you know, Black ancestor, you know, Eve. So I think that was a nice way to lead up to that opening scene.
I totally agree. I love the party scene because everyone there just looked so nice. Like Roz's character, played by Lynn Whitfield, and Moselle, played by Debbie Morgan. Like, they just look so beautiful and elegant. But I also like how this scene starts peeling back some layers, and you can tell that there is like envy and jealousy like creeping all through this house, through the family members. Cicely is jealous of Eve, and Eve is jealous of Cicely. Eve is typical middle child, that she's jealous of Cicely and, her younger brother Poe, who, you know, garners the attention of both parents. We get the scene at the end, you know, after all of the major stuff, which we'll get into, where Moselle's husband is jealous of Louis because he's a doctor. And he's like, you think you know everything? You don't know every fucking thing. So it's like, gosh, are all rich families like this, where it's like all this, you know, decadence and beauty, but then there's also this mystery of like envy and jealousy underneath. Like,
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't know about rich, but I
don't know about
that.
And particularly dwell in the rich, but I definitely think, And then when you have everything, you have to find something to be up in arms about.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. We need to talk about Miss Maddie Moreau. Woo!
Maddie was a common whore.
Oh, Jesus.
All the people's husbands.
Common, wowzers. She was definitely something, but how trash was Louis to be screwing her like right outside of his home where his children and his
Just
wife
like a
were.
typical man.
And his husband.
Wait a minute.
and her
Wait
husband.
a
I
minute.
made
What we not
some
gonna do
alternative.
is gang jump on all the men here. Just this 3 women and 1 man. No, I'm gonna stand up now. Come on now.
Listen,
let's
if you
relax.
don't waste your time standing up for Lewis, that's on you.
No, I'm not gonna stand up for Lewis, but I'm talking about the comment. What'd you say? Most men, all men. What'd you say?
Mm-hmm.
That was Kayla May.
Well, I would say I don't think that all men presented with the chance to cheat will cheat out. I'll take that back. I think there are some good, outstanding men out there. However, he was complete trash for going like literally 2 yards from his house and like, we're gonna do her in the, what was it called? They were in the shed or something like that.
Like a warehouse shed, yeah.
They said it.
They were in the carriage house.
Yeah, carriage house.
And I'm just like,
and I don't even know what that means. That just sounds like some rich people stuff to me.
Well, it literally had a carriage in there.
Right.
Because that's what Eve was laying on and sleep.
Oh, and when Eve woke up, I was just like, oh God, this poor child is going to be traumatized for her whole entire life. Because why y'all don't think to look and check and make sure? I would make sure, but I mean, they was in the heat of the moment or whatever. But
yeah, the hormones was high.
That whole summer was chaotic for Eve. Like
that was one summer.
It was a few days. It was
Jesus Christ. I don't want no summers like that.
it was quite. It was one summer. It was.
Yeah, I believe it was like one summer. That's why they weren't in school and all that stuff. But I do think that you could kind of see that Maddie Moreau was a little out of control herself. You know, yes, we know Lewis was trash, but Maddie Moreau should also go in the dumpster fire with Lewis because she is most definitely trash. You know, in the opening scene, you see like everybody else is kind of dancing a little bit more free. No one's, you know, there's a couple, like an older couple kind of swing dancing, and then it kind of pans to Maddie Moreau and I want to say Harry Moreau is his name, her husband or whatever, and they're just
Harry.
So they're just like bumping and grinding, like no care for the fact that like their elders are around them, sitting like literally they're doing this right in front of Lewis's mother who's sitting in the chair, and the other women are kind of gossiping about her, like, you know, Harry isn't the only one that has his hands on her rather. And so it kind of, you know, brings up this topic that often comes up when you hear of affairs. Like, is it the woman who's cheating with the man's fault, or is it the man's fault, or are they both to blame because they are trash? And so I'm putting them both in the trash category. Long story short.
Yeah. Agreed. I feel like this goes back to like the discussion that we were having last week when we were watching the Women of the Movement, when we were talking about Martin Luther King and how we're sure that he had plenty panties thrown at him. But like Lewis was the only colored doctor like in the colored area. And so the women loved him. How do you know, decide
fight off that
like
temptation?
How do you fight off that kind of temptation? And how do
temptation.
you decide where, okay, I'm just a man and is this my fault? Should I be stronger? Like, and not to give excuse for cheaters, them was some fine women. So what?
With some fine women, you're supposed to have eyes for your one.
Here you are supposed to have eyes for your one and only. However, Lisa Nicole Carson, I keep calling it Carson, Lisa Nicole Carson, Lynn Whitfield, what's the girl that played Victoria? Raoul? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Wait, who did she play? I said Victoria. Who did she play?
She played Stevie, but her name is
Victoria Raoul, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of temptation. And yeah, he was trash now. He should have done better. But I think, you know, because it's not shown on camera, but Victoria's character, we imagine that, or we can conclude that he slept with her too. So he was really.
Oh, I'm saying that, you know, that there was no one really in the town to check him on his behavior. So I think that it had gone on for so long that, you know, for him, it was just like, this is the norm. And that's something, again, that I can relate to, you know, from living in a small community. And when you're dealing with the family that is the prominent family of that community, like what
others might perceive as wrong. Say Roz, she is an outsider to the community. She moved there because of Lewis and for Lewis. If she were to be behaving the way that he behaved, you know, the whole town would probably be up in arms. But because it's their hometown boy, the boy that went away and came back to his community as, you know, not just a local, you know, bum, but he came back as a prominent doctor, I think that there was a lot of excusing of or making excuses for his behavior, so much so to the point that for him, it was just like breathing air. Like, this is just what I do. Even with my daughter standing in the doorway, I'm just going to shut the door in your face, do what I do. You know, either you acknowledge it or not, but just don't bring it to me. Like, I don't care.
Right. Yeah. I think that this movie relied heavily on like themes of just how unreliable memory is, because we've seen it be like twisted just from like trying to recall memories, and also had other people twisting other people's memories and stuff, like, because we have Eve go back and tell Cicely what happened, what she witnessed after, you know, catching her dad having sex with Maddie Monroe. And Cicely's like, no, that's not what happened. They were laughing and giggling, and you didn't see what you saw. And, you know, Eve has to carry that, even though she knows better, but, you know, she just carries that with her. We have, you know, the big breakout, the interaction between Cicely and her dad, and we, to this day, don't know what happened. So I
was going to say, like, I think a lot of that goes back to the retelling of history, because that started with her great whatever grandmother, where the story is told to us as though, yeah, well, she treated this white man, he gave her freedom, and then she bore him 16 children. Like, did she bear him, fall in love with him, and have 16 children, you know, and now they're the descendants of? Or did this man continue the abuse and they just don't want to acknowledge it as that, you know? It's really weird, like, how far back that mixing up and, like, their retelling of the story leaves everything so ambiguous, like, that you have to decide for yourself. Like, was that a love story? And did Eve's Bayou come out of a love story? Or did it come out of trauma and more trauma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't think of that, but yeah, you're right.
I never really thought about that deeply, to say, you know, everything is being told by the lens of the person telling it. And I really never thought about, you know, they were kind of lapsed in judgment or trying to persuade other people of how this went down, and the things that they believed of themselves, like what they believed to be true to them wasn't necessarily the truth all the time. So I guess I never really realized, like, wait, did even the story of how this all originated happen the way it happened? Never thought about it.
I feel like there's like a ton of things in this film that are really just up for interpretation, you know, from the interaction between Cicely and her dad to the, you know, the initial storytelling of the original Eve Batiste to the voodoo, you know, we don't know. All of that stuff is like for interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Like, I watched this movie, I think it came out when I was like 13, maybe going on 14. And I feel like I might have seen it a handful of times, like randomly it's on TV and I catch a few little snippets between the first time I watched it and me watching it this past week. And I view it so differently. Like, I guess when I was 13, I was viewing it from Cicely's perspective, maybe even Eve's perspective as a child. But now as a grown woman with 4 children, like, the story hit so different this time around for some reason. And I think one of the biggest things for me is perspective. And, like, I hear it so often, like, in my own life with my children. Everyone's in the same room and something is happening, but then I'm getting 3 different stories from everyone, you know? And you all, you know, you have siblings, you grew up, and you have a memory of how Christmas Day went 1997. And each of your stories is different. And they're like, no, it didn't happen like that. It happened like this. So for me, I think like that, I think Cassie, I think it's Cassie Lemons, did an excellent job of like pulling the viewer into the story. And you are literally, whatever your life experiences are, that's how you're going to perceive these stories. And it shows within, even in the movie, like they all were there, but they all have different perspectives of what happened.
But yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, I feel like that is one of the beautiful things about this film is that you can rewatch it 5-6 times and have a different perspective. Like I think this time I probably viewed it through the eyes of Cicely, and I think probably upon like first watching, I viewed it through the lens of Eve, and I actually look forward to watching it probably again and trying to view it through the eyes of Roz or maybe even Lewis, and because it feels like everybody has a different perspective on what happened, and then you also have a couple of characters that are a lot more intuitive than the others, so they have this gift of sight. Even sometimes all of the images can be mixed up and not in order, and I feel like that's also just how life works in general. Like some things you don't get the clearest understanding, but then as time moves on, they start to reveal themselves to you. So you guys want to get into the whole Cicely and Lewis interaction? Are we ready to go there yet?
Sure. Why not?
Let's do it.
People are listening. We do this on video, and everyone's face is looking all twisted up. Like,
do we have to?
I felt quite convicted while I was watching it this time around, because I was like, for years and years, I always felt that even though we never ever really got a clear answer on what exactly happened that night, I always just believed that Cicely probably just tried to kiss her dad, tried to fill the role of his wife, because she felt like her mom was somehow lacking in that area. But now that I've watched it again, and probably like the time before this time I watched it too, I really started thinking like maybe things are not as they appear. And I started like picking up these clues and seeds in other scenes where I'm like, I can't be so sure what happened. What do you guys think about that? Terrell, what do you think about that interaction, that whole scenario?
Throughout the whole thing, I was like, something is going on. I can't quite put my finger on it, what's going on, but it's either she has an electric complex or something is really happening to her. She feels that she's the wife and everyone else should bow down to her, because like the way she was talking to her mother, I was like, you deserve them slaps. You deserve several more slaps because you was wilding.
You did.
Because like you don't ever hear about nobody talking to their parents like that during the 60s. Like this ain't like the 2000s where people just wilding for no reason.
She was quite ridiculous in the way she would talk to her mom, and it was like, is this typical like teenage rebellion, or is this something deeper going on? Like, or is this the product of Lewis's grooming? So yeah, absolutely. What about you, Shelly?
I was definitely, like you said, this time watching it, starting to piece together some things that like leave me now with so many questions about what really happened that last night or between Lewis and Cicely. But for me, the main thing was Cicely trying to turn what Eve into literally saw. She wasn't even in the carriage room, but she decided to take it upon herself to, twist her memories and her thoughts. And it's like, if she would go to that lens, to protect her father, like what would she do when completely rejected? She was rejected, or, from what we gather, it seems as though her father rejected her and hit her, like physically assaulted her, So I definitely was thinking like she has, I don't know what they would call it in the female to father relationship, but, like Oedipus complex, where you are in love, like your level of love for your parental is on a different level. I think that she had fallen in love with her dad, and I don't think that he did anything to stop her from doing that either. So yeah, it was weird. Very incestuous. And yeah, you may need a disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast, because it definitely, if people haven't watched the movie, I think that that they need a disclaimer to say like this could be very triggering for someone who has experienced things like this.
Right. Yeah,
whether
at
it
the
be
very
parent, relative, any person that has that weird power dynamic, like he should have been told. Like when they were first dancing in that scene in the living room, even that felt a little off to me. Like he went from, dancing up on Maddie Moreau to, dancing with his daughter, but it also kind of made her feel like he wasn't dancing with her mom like that. So I'm stepping into this place. It was weird.
Yeah. So for me, I think she was coming into puberty, and she That's how I saw it. You know, when she was kind of talking to her mom a little spicy, and she was like, "If you were a better woman, he would be X, Y, and Z." And you know, she got her period, and she started acting really. She started having mood swings, and then the situation with her father happened. I think she was hitting puberty, and you know how people have like a psychosis when they hit puberty. I feel like, well, when they like have their periods and stuff like that. And it just felt like she had a lot of emotions. There was a lot going on that summer. She felt like she was a woman, and she felt like, you know, I'm coming into my womanhood. I just got my period. Everything is going to go into shit with my family. I should be the one to take on this role as the woman of the house. And no one was really there to kind of guide her and say, like, hey, I understand what you're experiencing. Let me kind of show you the way we do this. Everyone was like, attack, attack. Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mother like that. Blah, 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 blah. And no one really took the time out to kind of explain to her what was going on. And of course, I think that's what happened back in those times. I really think that's how we ended up in this situation with her father. And then her father was just a trash man all around. So it was just kind of like that was in him, unfortunately. And fortunately, he, as far as what the movie showed us and her storytelling, I don't know if we can trust what she said because she was doing a little crazy stuff. But if we were to just kind of go with what she said, I think it was a combination of like her believing that she should be the woman, and then like in that moment realizing like, no, this is not for me. Please stop. And her dad just taking it too far, versus like maybe she's just recalling this from, you know, her mental state at that point of what she feels happens. Because like you said, we'll never know if it was just like an innocent kiss on the lips and she took it too far but wanted to tell a different story, or if it was what she said. We'll never know. That is up for interpretation. But I do feel like I said, she was going through puberty and maybe she had some type of mental anguish.
Right. Yeah. Like, just to go off of what Kayla was just saying, like that was a thing that is just coming to me now that you're bringing it up. Like, I didn't realize or think about the fact that she may have been really hormonal, and like that whole scene of her chasing down Eve outside and like, you know, really being upset with her and like attacking her physically, you know, especially when you've seen so many other scenes of her kissing Eve on her forehead and, you know, them being very quite affectionate for teenagers, you know, or for a teen to her younger sibling. Then it's like a flip of the switch, like she really wanted to put hands on her. And if her, you know, uncle or soon-to-be uncle hadn't been there to grab her off her, like where would that attack have gone? How far would that have gone? So yeah, that's a very good point that you bring up there, like her being hormonal and making her act out like that.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I feel like, you know, like I was saying earlier, you know, about this film just having so many different interpretations, like based on your experiences, like because there are some young girls who accept that their period is happening and their body is changing and they are okay, and then there are some who do not enter into puberty with ease. So, you know, perhaps that is what was going on. Because I felt like another question I had as far as that whole scenario was the blood in her panties, was it her period, or was she sexually assaulted? Like, we don't know.
No, when you said that, I was like, I did not even, that never crossed my mind at all till you just said that might have been from an assault. Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I did think that for a moment, but then I think what my mind circled back to, again, I didn't think of it as so much hormonal, but I do think that she was highly stressed, and I think that triggered her cycle that summer. Like it probably was already going to happen that summer anyway, but I do think like all the chaos and craziness that was happening in their house, them having to be confined, you know, essentially because of her aunt. I took it as that, like she was very stressed, and that just ticked it off. Like that slap, like sent her over her body. Like that was a physical reaction to being slapped that night, with her cycle then starting a few days later. So
right. And I can accept that, like as far as like it either might have been a sexual assault or it was that, you know, something happened because she was obviously traumatized. So maybe perhaps it was, you know, a stress signal for her body to start her cycle. And maybe, you know, as a child, she did not understand what was happening. So she might have thought that she had sex because you don't when you're a kid, you don't know how that stuff goes. All you know
you think
is
you get pregnant from getting a kiss or being kissed.
Right. All you know is you have this interaction in your body, and your body, you have this interaction between a man, your father, and then in your underwear, you're now bleeding. So it could very well have been that she just, because she admits in the end, she did not know. She doesn't know what happened.
Right. And I can say that the one thing that Lewis and Cicely both agreed on in their retelling of the story is that second kiss was definitely not like the first, where that seems to be the norm in the family. Like they would kiss each other on the forehead, on the lips, whatever, just as a, affection, a normal family affection. But then that second kiss in both of their retelling, it was different. And so I can definitely see for her. And in that time, they didn't talk about intimacy like that, like you kind of just learn things. You got married off, and then that's when a woman found out what goes down in the bedroom and how you actually do become pregnant. Like you didn't sit down and have these conversations. I mean, I don't recall having that conversation with my mother until I was well into my 20s, and I definitely wasn't born in the 60s or whatever. So I can only imagine if it was hush that way for me coming up, what it would have been like for them. And even when Eve sees what happens in the carriage house, she doesn't know what's happening. She knows that they're kissing and that they're running each other in a different way than how she saw them dancing in the living room. But she's 10 and she still doesn't put together. It takes her almost to the end of the summer to realize, Dad's doing stuff with other women that he should not be doing, So, yeah,
I think that there were a lot of missing answers that all of these women needed. Let's talk about the phone call that Roz got. What do y'all think that this woman said? Do y'all remember the scene with the phone call? Some woman called the house.
Yes.
Was somebody pregnant?
He did. And then he fixed
it. There were some clues, but what I was trying to figure out was, what was the woman demanding an abortion or something? Because
probably money.
Yeah, well,
so it was a combination of money. But then Roz says that, I told that heifer I got 3 of his kids. So what? That's what she's telling Mo, Moselle. And so I think that she was calling to be like, look, me and Louis were getting down, and now I'm having his baby. And Roz is like, okay, and I got the mansion, I got 3 of his kids, and we're married, whatever. And so I think that the woman was trying to throw dirt on Roz, y'all's marriage, your status, your relationship ain't everything that you think it is, and now we're having this baby. But then it goes on to the walk that Mo and Roz are going on, where he says he sent her off to get an abortion, or he performed the abortion, but either way, a woman was not having the baby because he fixed it.
Yeah. Because I never really paid attention to that scene before. I knew that they were fighting, but I figured they were just fighting about his little previous transgressions or whatever. But then I listened this time. I heard the mention of money, and I was okay. Terrell, you mighty quiet. I know this is a strongly female-led film, and us 3 are cackling about it, and you're quite silent over there. Do you have anything to add?
Well, not to that point, but I did want us to get into Jurnee Smollett's acting. That was amazing. I saw the movie probably once or twice on TV or something like that, but I never really paid attention to it. But watching it this past week, I was like, wow, she should definitely have been in more and should be doing more, because she is top talent when it comes to acting.
Jurnee Smollett was phenomenal in this film, and for her to be so young and to convey that kind of the experience that she was going through, and just she appeared to be this just intuitive little child with all of this emotion and range, and she did an amazing job in this film. And she is the queen of the period piece. Nobody does historical drama acting like her. And I don't know if it is this whole tragic mulatto look she got going on, but She
Why is it
conveys that.
tragic? Oh
so
God,
well.
that's hilarious.
I mean, that's just what they call it, the tragic mulatto.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's a term.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I wasn't calling
But
her
you just
tragic.
made that up. I was like,
No,
what?
no. That's a term like a story trope, like the magical Negro,
right?
the tragic mulatto.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, she conveys that.
For Kirsten Jackson, I have
Lay
a
on
question.
it.
If Journey Smollett is a tragic mulatto, what are you?
I am one too.
Almost anything that she has ever been in, she puts that much heart and soul behind her acting talent. Like, she is talented.
Very, but I'll agree. I love to see her in this era, from the Great Debaters, even the Lovecraft Country, like that. Yeah, she sent me. I cannot see anyone else playing these roles, but this was one of her like big breakout roles, and I think really solidified her, you know, as a great child actor, because we've seen her in little cutesy things like the Cosbys, and what else was she in? The Full House as the sidekick best friend or whatever. But I think that, I think she did her thing in this film, and like really watching, as I said, watching it this time around, I guess maybe because I was watching it knowing that we were going to have to essentially critique it, like before, just kind of, you know, watching a story of Black lives. But this time around, like really, that crying scene of her trying to get Cicely, you know, to tell her, I think I'm like, I would bare my soul in a heartbeat, like looking down at this little girl, you know, but then like she's having this little meltdown moment, but then like she's sitting on the couch with her Aunt Moselle in another scene, and she's so mature in that scene that I can see why Moselle felt comfortable to tell her that whole story that happened with Maynard, her first husband. Like, it's like, oh yeah, she could definitely handle that. It was amazing. She is amazing.
I agree. Let's talk about the Moselle character for a little while. Love Moselle, but she also was kind of sickening to me.
What you mean?
There are parts in this film, right, where nobody is talking about you, Moselle, but she would throw herself into the drama. She would insert herself in. And it's like, okay, I mean, we all know people like that. But like when Roz was complaining about Lewis, and she was like, my brother and I, we are one of a kind. Moselle, what? and then it was like another thing is they were talking about Lewis again, and she was, my brother and I used to like.
Yeah.
Or it could have been just her standing up for her brothers. I'm like, you're not just gonna talk cash crazy about my brother, regardless if they doing right or wrong. I'm gonna protect my siblings.
Well, I think that she was getting at like that whole thing where we started off in this conversation saying how, you know, Lewis was trash, and people tending to want to lump men into that category. Moselle, to me, was definitely giving women cheat better. We doing better, even though we call Maynard his wife. But she was just out here like, like me and my brother are one and the same. I don't know where this came from, you know, in us, but we have amazing partners, husbands, and yet still we both choose to step out. Because I don't think she was faithful to Harry. I don't think she was faithful to Maynard. And I don't recall her saying what the soldier's name was. But yeah, I think that she was saying that we both are like that. We both know that we are the it people in town. We can have anybody that we want, and there's nothing stopping us from doing that. So I could see where you're saying, like, yeah, she was definitely trying to add herself into the story.
I almost feel like she was trying to give her a little warning hit, like, girl, you know we cursed, so you know you can't really blame us and fault us, because that's what it was giving. Like, well, we all one and the same, and you know how I am, so you should know how he is.
So I have a question for you guys. Another question: did Eve kill her daddy?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
She, but
yes,
it
wasn't. That's your vote. Yes.
The way that she thinks she did. She set that into motion when she spoke to that man's husband she was looking for apples or looking for Diane Carroll's character. She set all of that into motion, and that was just the lady. She picks up on stuff. She was paying attention. She knew what was going on. She heard what the young lady said to the husband, and was like, well, this is going to happen either way, because this guy was hell bent on it. When he saw Lewis, he was like, bruh, keep my wife's name out your mouth. Speak to her again,
You're dead, Louis.
I was looking like, bro, you crazy. Did that man look like he was playing with you?
But that just speaks to Lewis's arrogance. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was quite arrogant. Right. But yeah, I definitely think that she set things in motion. And I think that her retelling of the story as an adult, I think that she realizes as well. I don't think that there's any confusion there that she believes the voodoo did it. I think that she knows, like, if I hadn't had that conversation with that man that day, like, it is all replayed in her mind, and in her mind, you know, put the hit out on him essentially. So yeah,
I feel like she could have saved them $20 because voodoo lady, she probably ain't do that shit she said she did by putting the wax coffin in the cemetery and all that stuff. And I feel like she knew what she was doing, because that cackle that she gave around the end, like laughing at her when she was like, "No, I wanted the doll." She knew, like, I already saw what was going to happen to the Batiste, because I hate their guts. And I saw it from afar, and all of it is just coming full circle and into fruition. And she could have saved a little $20. And she better be glad that the voodoo lady did not pay her any attention, because she literally took hair out of a random comb. She could have killed anybody.
When I saw the hair, I was like, that is not his hair. It's way too long.
I thought the same thing. Like, what is happening?
It was like the hair from an old white woman. Like, where you got that hair?
Yes, it was like blondish, brownish or something. So yeah, it definitely was not his hair. But he, you know, he had it coming. Like, it was bound to happen eventually. I'm not mad at it, because he was a jerk.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, wasn't he like the only doctor in town? Like, hey, bro, don't kill the doctor. How are we gonna get away around here?
Right.
And the only medicine he was giving out was his dingling. So
yeah, well, look, aspirin and dingling. Which one you want?
He had his medicine bag. It was empty.
Exactly. But I did enjoy the whole, you know, voodoo aspect and the Southern Gothic. I guess when I was doing a little like sidebar researching, I saw a lot of places where the film was listed as a horror film, and maybe that's kind of Cassie's background, her having done Candyman and Silence of the Lambs. But maybe for us, like, okay, a few things I loved about definitely the voodoo and like the psychic component, the voodoo rivalry between Elzora and Moselle was like, it was really funny. I don't know. I guess I know I'm the guest, but I have to ask, like, how do you all feel about, you know, this topic in Black culture of voodoo and African spirituality?
I think that it does not get the respect that it deserves, but that anything that veers off from Christianity does not get the respect it deserves in the Black community. And so, because like there's like a lot of like African spirituality that like is very different from Christian upbringing, and we're trained to consider that as evil and as the, you know, witchcraft. And all it really is just intuition and really listening to that inner voice, you know, with the exception of a chicken bone here or there. You know, But yeah, that whole like mysticism of fortune telling and soothsaying, and I don't know. What are your thoughts, Terrell?
That's not something I really like pay attention to. I thought it was interesting in the film. I don't know much about voodoo or much about African spirituality, so I was like, this is interesting. It's a different look, something I've not had much contact with. You know, being raised Christian, going to a Baptist church majority of my life, so.
But it's so interesting. A lot of those practices are like birthed in all of the stuff that we consider demonic, like, you know, the communion and the blood sacrifice and the Holy Spirit, but nobody considers it possession. So
I agree. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I was like, we really be out here eating the flesh of Jesus and the blood of Jesus, and don't nobody really bat an eyelash at that. But let you chicken bone and say a little chant, and it's gonna be, because the crazy thing is, like, y'all know at communion they say that this is the blood of Jesus, is the, and I'm like, is that not? I'm not saying it's casting a spell, but like it is.
Right.
They're doing rituals at church.
Exactly.
Regardless if you want to call it prayer, is that not the same as, like, manifesting or putting into the universe? Like, so I think it's really trash that we bash other people for what they call their religion. Like,
and that is the thing. Like, voodoo is a religion, so
right.
It is not black magic or whatever. But I think, like, to bring it back full circle, and I think that is why back then in 1997, this movie was like put into the horror category or genre, is because of those scenes of the bones being poured out on the table, the touching of the hands and visions being, seen and things like that. Whereas I don't know if it is a little less taboo today, but I know certainly then, that Black people would look at this as like blasphemy, or as, you watching the devil's work, with not really having, maybe not people watching from Louisiana and in that area, but other people, throughout the world, and, especially the South. Although, like you said, we do a lot of those things in church, but just in our general lives, like my family is just recovering from COVID. We didn't go to the store and buy a single Dayquil, NyQuil, like none of that. Everything. My girlfriend brought me something from Sunbury. I didn't ask no questions about what was in it. Some kind of root tea she brought me, and that thing knocked it up out of me. So it's like there's things that we don't know what she gave John Baptiste for his cholera. But we trust and believe, like, that somebody great grandmama said this was it, and that it worked. So we still, to this day, use a lot of those old remedies, and, just have the same belief systems, that our ancestors, held so closely to, and have brought from Africa from hundreds of years ago, and still resonate with us to this day. So
absolutely. Like, I just don't understand how someone could, like, look at something and just automatically dismiss it, like, chicken bones or crystals or whatever it is that you choose to, like, to, hold your intention or whatever. And and we see, like, in this movie where planting small seeds can set things into motion. So it's something that can have that kind of power. Why couldn't an object that is made by God not hold some sort of influence or some sort of power? Like,
right.
I think it is quite possible, because like we watch Eve, the character Eve. She knew what she was doing. She planted a seed in Maddie's husband's head. She planted a seed and knew exactly what she was getting into. And we had already heard Diane Carroll's character. Cool. Can we talk about how good Diane Carroll looked in this movie?
I know, she's so beautiful.
As a dirty swamp witch, she was still beautiful. Like, when she took all that white paint off and we saw her at home with her wild hair, I was like, oh my God. And she was 62 years old in this movie. And,
Wow.
and she looked damn good. But yeah, she was like, sometimes a man falls on his own sword. She knew what was going to happen, and she saw it.
Yeah, especially because I think initially I have this feeling that Roz always knew what Lewis was. She says that she came here thinking he was a man that fixed things, he was a hero, and then she comes to find out he's just a man, which I think was a big theme for the family overall. It's a coming of age story for Cicely and Eve, where they realize that their heroes, their beautiful goddess mother and their father, is not who they always believed him to be. And not only are they finding this out, everyone in this community is finding it out. So that, I think for Roz, like it was something that was always getting to her. But then, like, when she started getting those phone calls and like everybody in the towns talking about it, it really became, a problem for all of them. And so, yeah.
I also think, like, this movie was a definitely, especially Lewis's character, was a lesson in how you really need to check your trauma. Because and check your misgivings and shortcomings, because he obviously was lacking something, because continually said, at least twice in the movie, that he needed to be a hero. He loved how his girls idolized him. He loved how the women in that town idolized him. And he essentially fucked over how many lives in this movie just because he needed to be the hero. He needed to be the big man. He needed to be sought after. And like these girls, they've lost their dad. We don't know what happened between him and Cicely. Eve now has to carry around the weight of her killing her dad. You know, Roz has lost a husband, but you know, before that, she was cheated on so terribly. We don't know if there is a question mark baby out there that he has fathered. Moselle has lost her brother. Harry, I'm sure he went to prison, and now Maddie is without a husband. So like all of these people are like fucked over from just the actions of this one person.
One person. Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, I think it goes back to like idolizing, you know, just idolizing a single person and not checking people, you know. I think we're getting to a place, you know, in present day, where not too much slides with folks. And I think that's an amazing thing. I feel like the whole family sat back and watched him groom Cicely. How far it went, we don't know. I think a lot of Cicely and her mother's tension came from Roz knowing that, it's gonna get real reckless, you know, now that she is at this point. And that's where that question, you know, because she kind of asked her, you know, do you want to go with your grandmother? This psychologist says that you may need some time away, and then she kind of threw in there, but if you don't want to go, you don't have to. But she definitely was nudging her to get up out my house before my husband put his hands on you, and I had to put hands on both of y'all. You know, like she wanted her to get out of that situation because she knew where it was leading. Feel like she did.
I would have to agree. I feel like they just did not take enough care about these kids. Like everyone was kind of focused on them and their trauma and what they were going through, that they really did not pay attention to what the children were going through. Like the scene where Journey Smollett character is sitting there talking to her aunt and is like, how you kill someone with voodoo? I'd have been looking like, why you want to know that?
Yes.
Like no one questioned that. It was just like, okay, I'm no, like sis, why do you need to know that? What's something ain't right in the rice pudding. Like she looked at her, but she was like, oh, I almost forgot you was there. Huh?
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting, like you bring that scene up, because there was also like, so you know, at that scene where she is like, you want to kill somebody with voodoo, and she essentially tries to use her gifts on Eve, like give me your hand so I can see. I feel like Moselle really dropped the ball there. Like her only action was she asked Lewis what happened, and of course he either lied or maybe he told truth, or maybe he told her what he thought happened. But you could tell that she kind of saw something but jerked away and was like, well fine, if you don't want to tell me, I'm not gonna just pry it out of you, instead of like probing and trying to figure out and get to the bottom of it. Like she just essentially accepted Lewis's excuse of, oh, nothing happened, and it was like they were failed by these adults in their lives.
Yeah. And I feel like that's another thing that is like a big problem for me, was like that Moselle hadn't processed her trauma. So that's why she kept kind of checking out like that, you know, like right after Harry died. So when she clearly loved, was it like the day after or same week where she went back to seeing clients as if nothing happened, you know? And that is a big theme in Black lives. That's what we do. You know, and that was, I feel like, Cassie's way of saying, like, this isn't okay, but if I'm going to tell this story, I'm going to tell you how it would go down in one of our families. Like, you would experience this trauma, then you get up and cook your children their meals, you get up and go back to the job, you would just keeping on. And I think that was Moselle. It's like she was doing that and just kind of going through the motions, but she still couldn't escape the trauma. Like, it was still there, and clearly she was having her own mental break and not caring for herself, so she could not care for Eve the way that she needed to in that moment. And I do think that when she held Eve's hand, I feel like she saw what was going to happen. But the same thing with the story of the little boy getting hit by the bus. It's not, she may see the visions, but can she really do anything to prevent these things from happening? She can't. So it's like, okay, I see what's going to go down. And she was quite forgiving of Eve at the end of the movie. I think she knew that Eve had kind of set the ball in motion for her father to be killed. One way or another, whether seeing the voodoo queen or talking to Harry, I think that her aunt had a knowing that she played some small role in that, but she didn't blame her because it was like it was bound to happen anyway.
And that, when you said that, brought me back to what Kirsten said about her gift. I didn't really see it that much as a gift, but just because, like, what could she do about it? Could she help change the outcome of anything that was going to happen? Would you really want to know about something that you could do nothing about?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's how I felt about that. I was like, I wouldn't want any type of gift like that. I don't want to know what's going on in anyone's life. I have enough things going on in my own life that I don't need the burden of everyone else coming to me like, well, I need to find my son. I need to find my wife. I need to find my this. Like, bro,
Right.
you might want to keep searching because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But what I thought was kind of cool, though, is that we don't know what happens with Mozelle's last husband. I'm assuming they got married or whatever. But she did say with all her previous husbands, she could look at them and see nothing. But for some reason, when, you know, was he like supposed to be Black and Native American? I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, I think it was,
I
because
was
his
confused
name was like
too.
Ravenfoot or
Right,
Raven
okay, so
something.
maybe that's what it is. Like he was playing a mixed man, but she saw his wife, she saw his future, she saw what was happening. So I feel like that was kind of her curse was uncursing, maybe. But I hope so.
Yeah. I hope so too, because that's like a heavy thing to carry around. Because it was quite clear that she could see everyone's future and everyone's, like, you know, what's coming up, but her own and those that she was close to.
Yeah, and speaking of like the whole cinematic component, that scene of her walking into that mirror to stand next to Maynard, that is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Like the way that it's shot, you know, I don't know what the budget was for this film, but I can only imagine in that time it wasn't some great budget. And probably like if it were to be done today, it might have been like a flashback to a younger Moselle or something like that. But like the way they were able to capture that, and like Eve just standing there in the mirror, like with her mouth wide open, like watching her aunt step into the scene. Like that's when I think I realized that Eve had the gift of sight. Because
I think that was very smart, a smart way for them to introduce the fact that Eve could see just like her aunt could.
They had a special
that was a good
connection
thing
there.
Well, does anyone have any final thoughts, any scenes they want to talk about?
No, I really like this movie. I enjoyed this movie, you know, without the, you know, little big part that happened. Why? But I really enjoyed this movie, especially watching it again. I've watched it a couple times before that, but just kind of like out of habit. Like it's something on TV, but this is my first time like watching it to be like, okay, let's analyze what's going on. And who the person who wrote this film, amazing.
Yeah,
it's a different type of film. It's not one we get all the time. And I thought it was interesting to like also hear you guys talk about how you looked at it through everyone else's eyes and lenses, and like how you really have to pay attention to the story and what everyone is experiencing to kind of get the full picture of what was going on in the movie. So I really enjoyed it.
I agree. I feel the same way. It is one of those movies where you have to watch to pick up the storyline, but also to pick up a certain like nuances between the stories and with the different characters. And I think that this cast did a really good job of almost like telling a story without any words, like their movements, their facial expressions, like everything was just really like told a story within itself. And so it made the story very complex. And like I said, like first watching it, it's just a nice movie with a lot of good-looking Black folks in the bayous of Louisiana. But then when you really start peeling back all of these layers, you really find that there is a deep story. And then you peel back another layer, and it's an even deeper story, and even deeper. So
I definitely agree with that. And I think like, you know, one of my favorite quotes from the movie is I think it's a poem that Eve's reading at the end, where essentially she's saying, memories can be different for everyone just depending on which way the light is shining on that image in your mind. And I feel like that's the biggest takeaway is that everyone's perspective is different. Everyone's perspective plays a huge part in how the story is retold. So
and it can change with age, like things, like we talked about earlier, like things that I remember when I was younger. When I look back on it as an adult, I'm like, that was really fucked up.
Yeah. Having learned the things, especially in these last few years, like last 5 years with the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, like all these things, I think, even as African American people watching this film today versus when we were children, we have unlearned so many things. And that's why we can say, you mentioned earlier how you initially watched it and felt like Cicely was lying, like she made it up. Like that was the final scene, like that Lewis wrote his letter and like that was the truth. And I think for me, I felt the same way because it's like, you don't question adults. You don't, if this is what he said happened, then that must be the truth. But here today, I can unequivocally say that I have no clue what happened. I just know what did happen was wrong and made people feel some type of way and it shouldn't have happened. So, yeah.
Right. Well, okay, great. Well, I think it's time for best, worst, and weirdest. Terrell, you want to go?
Right.
What's your best, worst, and weirdest?
Best, worst, and weirdest. The best part of this movie that I thought the casting for this movie was perfect. Just looking back, I was like, wow, I didn't know so many people that I come to know as great actors and actresses were in this movie. Like even Bradford Marcellus, I just thought, okay, that's the guy that plays the saxophone real well. But I was like, wow, he really did well in the little part that he had, but he still did an excellent job, and that really surprised me. The worst was not really getting a conclusion to, because did she become happy? Did what really happened with the daughter and the father, did she end up marrying the fella? Did he end up finding his wife and getting a divorce he was seeking? Just a lot of unanswered questions. And the weirdest, some of those visions seem weird to me because when I watched the first one where I guess her husband first died after that party, I was like, what is this spider? What is going on? I had to sit and think like, why are they showing me this? And then I was like, oh, she's a Black Widow. I was like, okay, got it. But like, not when you first see it, I was like, this is strange. What's going on? So yeah, that's what I thought of that.
All right, Kayla.
Okay, so my best of the movie was, I really enjoyed looking at this through Eve's perspective, because most of the movies was through Eve's perspective. She's just such a great actor, so it was so easy to watch her. I love how, I guess my best would really be how they told the stories, and you really kind of keep you guessing. Like, it is up to you to determine. I'm usually a girl for closure, but I actually really liked how this movie kind of left it up for your interpretation. What do you believe? It kind of gets you thinking a little bit more about what's going on. So I really did enjoy them kind of leaving that open to us. Like, hey, this could have went this way, this could have went that way, this could have. What do you think? You take it and make it your own story. My worst, I really hate anything that has to do with SA in any movie and anything. So I always feel like you can leave that out a little bit, just a little bit. My weirdest was I don't know. The weird part for me was how Mazel was like real skeptical of the lady, the fortune teller lady. And I'm like, ain't y'all doing the same? And then he was right when she was like, you are just a curse. Not you getting upset because, baby, all the men before you have died. And the next one, what they do, died. I was like, girl, how you going to call her a skeptic? How be skeptical of her? I was like, girl, that's weird. That's weird vibes. You just hating on that lady because that lady was correct and right and true.
Oh, okay.
True. She was.
True.
Right.
Shelly, our guest host, would you like to give your best, worst, and weirdest?
Okay, I guess the best for me is to piggyback off of Terrell and Kayla. I think the casting was phenomenal, and I really love like that it's a true telling of a Black story without like any saviors coming in and all that jazz. Like all you see is beautiful Black people working on the land, working, at the market. And I love that component. And I really enjoyed the whole voodoo and psychic visions component. And someone owning that as a part of Black and Afro-American culture. And I guess the weirdest for me, what really weirded me out was like the shooting or the way that scene at the end where Harry is walking up into the bar and he's like in his trench coat. That was terrifying and weird to watch. And I kind of feel like, he definitely overacted that part. I don't know. It just didn't do for me what I wanted it to do. I mean, like him snatching Maddie up about the bar. I'm just like, why is he acting this out so hard? I know you're angry, like you said what you had to say, but that was weird. And I do think that, the relationship between Cicely and her father, it was all weird. Like it's just too ambiguous, like what was really going down between them. And then what is it? Worst?
Yep, your best, worst, weirdest. I think you went best, weirdest.
Okay, so and then I guess my worst part of it is, for me, I think the worst thing for me is how I think it brought up for me a lot of thoughts and memories of, not being heard, children not being heard, and when they need to be heard, children, being told you're to be seen, not heard, and all of that. I think that this whole entire movie reminded me of that, and so that was the worst thing for me, and encouraged me to be more open and receptive to our youth. So yeah,
I would say my best. Everyone has said it. Like this beautiful Black cast is wonderful. It's a wonderful, but I love a period piece. And like a Black period piece is like just sends me over the moon. But a Black period piece in Louisiana is just like, oh my God, I love it. Like all three of those elements, because I just love Louisiana, or that whole Bayou based movie anyway. Mm-hmm. And just like to tie all three of those together, it being just Black and just Louisiana and just historical, and it was wonderful. So that would be the best. The worst would be, I don't know, it's also kind of one of the best things about it too. It's like we don't know what really happened with Cicely. We don't know. We can guess, so we could, see it through different lenses and try to interpret what things mean and what happened. But at the end, we just don't know. And I feel like even though, okay, Cicely is a made up character, I also know the effects of unchecked trauma and, things that are not dealt with, especially things that happen in your childhood. And she, we know that she could not piece together what happened. And it wasn't even, I can't remember. It's that the images in my brain are all scattered around. And I hope for this character that the psychologist or whatever her dad was saying that he had talked to, that she is able to talk through these things and work through this trauma so that she does not carry it into adulthood and have it mess up or interrupt things in her life, because that is absolutely possible. So for me, that was the worst. The weirdest, well, I mean, there were definitely pockets in this film that were just weird, but I enjoyed that. So let's see, the weirdest, I feel like it's so much weird. Like, how do I choose one? But yeah, just I would say probably the weirdest was the dynamic in the relationship between Moselle and Louis, because she idolized him, and just like every other woman in this film did. Every woman and child in the town idolized him, but he thought she was crazy. And I was like, that's interesting how it's, like I said, this movie is like strongly based on interpretations, because she adored her brother, but he thought she was a damn fool, and was basically yeah, we just let her do that little sideshow fortune telling, just keep her out of trouble. It's like, wow. Mm-hmm. And I felt like if she would have heard, that would have hurt her feelings so bad, because she really idolized her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's it for me. That's my best, worst, and weirdest. Took me a minute to come up with the weirdest, but got it in there. Yeah. Okay. So before we close out, let's talk about what everybody is binging this week. Real quick. Troy, what you watching on TV this week? What are you binging?
TV. Actually, I ended up going back after I watched that reboot of the game. Now I'm watching the original series, and it's still funny to me. I'm cracking up.
But did you go back to episode 1 of the game?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't realize they released the reboot yet. So it's out
on Paramount Plus. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Cool. How was it? Was it good?
Yes, it was really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that indefinitely. I actually ended up watching it twice. So
okay, somebody has some time on their hands.
Right.
A little bit.
Kayla, what you watching this week?
Okay, so I'm back to The Walking Dead, guys.
Welcome back.
I still have two more episodes of All of Us Are Dead, but I'm like holding on to them because I've gotten so far in the series that I'm gonna hate to see it go south. Like it's already been south, but like I want to have for them, and they're usually not happy endings. So I'm trying to hold off, but I'm eventually gonna finish it. I'm gonna eventually finish it. But I am back on The Walking Dead because I need to. There are 16 episodes in each season, and I'm like, why? But it's so good, so I am fully invested again. So that's what I'm watching.
Well, as far as I know, them zombies, they still in that tank from season 1, episode 1.
No,
That's funny.
not the tank.
I tried, okay?
That ain't trying. You tried.
Well, I mean, look, zombies just ain't my thing, but I respect it. Shelly, what you binging on, girl?
Oh goodness, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but
look, they laughed at me for like 3 straight weeks about watching The Good Witch, so you'll be fine.
I have been binging, like on occasion when I need to be put in a good mood, Martin reruns, and the new thing. What is that? And Just Like That, like the spinoff of Sex and the City. I think they just had their last episode last week, and I absolutely loved it. I am a Sex and the City, so I definitely love that. And I am hoping to start this week Raising Dion. So yeah,
Okay.
season 2.
Yeah, that's what I haven't started Raising Dion yet, but it's on my list because I loved the first season. I thought it was so cute.
Well, I'm talking about your list. That's what I'm
Oh, okay. Look, my list is running too.
List.
The never-ending list. But yeah, well, we went back. Taylor and I went back and watched season 1 of Raising Dion because it's been like 3 years or so. Same thing with Ozark. I don't know if you guys have watched Ozark, but yeah, I had to go back and like rewatch season 1 through 3 so that I could be caught up again to watch season 4 of Ozark. But yeah.
Yeah, I said I might go back and watch season 1 of Raising Dion because it was so cute, and the little girl Esperanza. Oh my gosh! And Dion was a little badass. He was even cute. So
he was not bad. He was He was such a cool kid.
he was a cool kid. He was a very cool kid. But it was moments I was like, now Dion, you don't go sit your ass down.
Yeah. I think they have to do that in these shows. Like they have to make it more dramatic than it needs to be. But because in real life, Dion would have went and sat down somewhere.
Okay.
His mama would have gave him that look, and like them powers would have been shut all the way down.
That's what I'm gonna watch soon. It is on the list, but it's top of the list. So screw you, T-Real. But I've started that new Netflix show, the one with the long title, The Woman in the Window and the Girl Across the Street or something. I can't think of the whole title because it's so long. With Kristen Bell.
Yep.
And I've just started episode 2, and it's very good. I'm enjoying it. I hope it doesn't flake around. Some things start off good and then they kind of flake around the end. But I'm hoping that it's good. And I'm finishing up Girlfriends.
Girlfriend.
I realized I didn't even remember that seasons. So I'm rewatching them now, and I'm almost done with the season before the last one. I think it's like 8 seasons. So yeah. So I'm rewatching that, and yeah, I think that's it. And I think I'm the only one on earth that watched Sweet Magnolias. I feel like I'm the only one here that watched it.
I don't even know what that is.
Know what it is, but I'm not watching it. That's not on my list.
It's not on my list, sorry.
Well, I watched it and then I put Mama onto it because that's the type of stuff she likes. She like that whole Bridges of Madison County kind of theme, like white women in dramatic peril and just emotional soapy drama. And then like Heather Headley is in it, and her voice is killing me, but I like it.
The singer, you don't like Heather Headley?
Oh, I love her.
Oh.
But her voice is so dramatic that it's like sometimes it'd be like in every scene you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I forgot that she acts though. I do. Yeah. That's
every scene. She's like, "Well, I'm not exactly sure why you. I think it should be clear to you that I love her though. Don't get me wrong. That's my boo.
Don't sound like it.
But I think she played the therapist and She's Gotta Have It, right?
She was dramatic.
The reboot of She's Gotta Have It, and I liked her in that scene because that's what you want a therapist to be, like to talk slowly and to hear you. But I can't see her like in many other roles, so that's kind of interesting. But I'm still not watching it.
Therapist, that's how she is in that show, and I can see why nobody would want to watch it because it is very be dramatic. It's cute. It's a cute little show. It's whatever. So, well, Shelly, thank you for joining us today. You gave some wonderful input and insight to our movie. Well, actually, your movie because you chose it.
Yeah, I don't know how it even came up, but I'm glad that we got to revisit that classic. So
it was fun going down memory lane. And thank you for being our guide on this journey.
Yes.
No.
And namaste.
Did you say namaste?
No. You got it in their language, and you know,
right?
Is a yogiist.
No, yogi. Yogi
is.
Was she against yoga? I don't like a yogi.
Right,
Stop it.
Get it right, Terrell. I am not anti-yoga.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for letting me grace your podcast. I absolutely love it. I told Kirsten, I listened to, I think, 3 podcasts in a row and literally laughed for 3 hours straight the whole time, but I loved it. Great insight. I love that you guys, you point out the things that other people just don't notice and bring up because you're coming with your perspective, your worldview. So I love it.
Yeah, well, that's what we like to think we're doing over here. Really, we just, shooting the shit. But, but every now and then we say something slightly profound. So, hey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is our show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Kayla, you want to take us out?
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. For bonus content and to learn more about the show, you can head over to www.sipsandscripts.com. If you've got a suggestion for a film that you'd like us to talk about, leave us a voicemail and let us know. Or if you have something to add to the conversation or just say hello, leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on the show. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sips and Scripts Podcast. Thanks again and see you next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.